What's going on, Guardians? It's Tizzle here. So yesterday I posted a build of my Arc Warlock for the Master Nightfall this week, and now I just wanted to show my Hunter build that I used, which is Assassin's COWL. You've probably seen this build everywhere. I made a build on this over a year ago, actually, on Top Tree Arc Staff. It was one of my favorite ways to play, and it got me my first solo flawless dungeon, which was Pit of Heresy. It made the totems encounter super easy. But I do just want to break down everything that I used, and I was very impressed with this in endgame content. I was 1597, so I was only 3 below the 1600 recommended power, but I do want to try this build in Grandmasters going forward and just see how it stacks up. I do really hope it can be viable because it would be fun to play more aggressively in Grandmasters. So I have the Gathering Storm Super. It does decent AoE damage and actually is pretty strong, and what's nice is it's just a one and done super, so you can just cast it and then just get back to dealing damage with your weapons. So I think it's a little better than Arc Staff and a little safer. Gambler's Dodge, so we dodge, we get our melee ability back, and this pairs nicely with Combination Blow, where a quick strike that temporarily increases your melee damage when defeating a target, stacking 3 times. So this will make you punch way harder with Combination Blow times 3. I was running Pulse Grenades. Then we have Lethal Current. After dodging, your next melee attack has increased lunge range, jolts the target, and creates a damaging aftershock. So this build used to be good on its own, back on just Top Tree Arc Staff, but now with jolting and the AoE it does, it's actually really good for ad clear. And then we have Flow State. Defeating a jolted target makes you amplified. While you are amplified, your dodge recharges more quickly, you're more resilient while dodging, and your reload speed is greatly increased. So this just pairs really nicely with the build because we're going to be jolting all the enemies basically and will always be amplified. Spark of Resistance. While surrounded by combatants, you are more resistant to incoming damage, and it gives plus 10 strength. Obviously that's amazing because we are always going to be surrounded by combatants, and this is a pretty ad heavy Nightfall on top of it. And back to this, just for 1 second, it says it increases your dodge more quickly. So I am only running 70 mobility. Obviously, the number one most important stat is that 100 resilience for the 40% damage reduction. Then just try to get your stats as good as you can. Spark of Ions. Defeating a jolted target creates an ionic trace. So again, this will just improve our ability cooldowns, and we're always going to be jolting targets. Spark of Shock. It gives minus 10 discipline, but it jolts targets with your arc grenades. So that's really powerful, as jolt is really good, especially for ad clear. And then I just run Spark of Magnitude to make my Pulse Grenade last longer. Even though we don't use a ton of grenades, we're pretty much just punching everything. I have Anti-Barrier Scout on for the Barrier Champions. And then a 1-2 punch shotgun, and this one happens to be Arc. And so when we shoot something, you probably know how 1-2 punch works. But when we hit an enemy with every pellet, it increases your melee damage for a short duration. I believe this is 3 times. So with Combination Blow times 3 plus 1-2 punch, you'll see I can take out barrier servitors before they even get their shield up. So it's really good. And then in Grandmaster content, specifically for barrier servitors, because they're not too dangerous, the Barrier Knights and Barrier Colossus, especially with their stomp, will definitely be harder to take down with this build. But in this Nightfall in particular, this actually worked really good. So I'm excited to try it in Grandmasters. And then Legend of Acarius, I've always loved this thing. I just love weapons that do high burst damage. And with the Catalyst, it now has Trench Barrel. So when you melee, you then do 50% more damage. This Nightfall is Acute Arc Burn. So Legend of Acarius is already hitting 25% harder just due to that. This thing absolutely shreds the champions, as you'll see in the Nightfall run that I will play after the build breakdown. Assassin's COWL, this is the most important part of the build. Powered melee final blows grant invisibility and restore a portion of health and shields. Finishers and final blows against more powerful targets increase the duration of the invisibility and the amount of health and shields that are stored. And shields that are restored. So you gain bonus super energy on melee kill with hands on. Again, we're meleeing everything, so we might as well have hands on. And then I also have Font of Might because both our weapons are arc. So that will give us 25% more arc damage anytime we pick up a arc elemental well. And I do have melee well maker on to make those wells. And again, we're just constantly getting wells. I did amped up just because it only costs 1, so we stay amplified for longer. And then surge detonators is it's used against overload champions, which aren't in this Nightfall, but it does disrupt any combatants and lower their damage output. And that's actually pretty good, especially on the boss, because she deals arc damage and arc burn is on. So this will just make her attacks deal a little less damage. So they're just good to run all the time. On the arms, I've got Unstoppable Shotgun because there is Unstoppable Ogres. Elemental Charge to become charged with light when we pick up really any elemental well, but we'll be making arc elemental wells, so we'll get ×2 charge with light every time we pick one up. Then we just have survivability stuff on the chest piece, thermal shock plating, and concussive dampener, and then high energy fire, so our weapons will deal 20% more damage anytime we're charged with light, which again is pretty much all the time. And then Well of Ions to give us another 30% damage increase every time we do a melee when we pick up an arc elemental well. So basically you get one melee kill that will drop a well, then you pick up an arc elemental well that'll proc Well of Ions, and then you're dealing another 30% more damage on top of 1-2 punch and on top of combination blow ×3. And then shotgun scavenger, obviously, because we're running 2 shotguns. So as you can see, this is a very in-your-face, melee-focused build. A lot of people are really high on Liar's Handshake. If you don't know what those do, they basically allow you to follow up with an extremely powerful melee counterpunch. So if you get meleeed, you'll do the hard counterpunch, or if you melee twice back-to-back, you'll do the counterpunch. This is overkill in this. Again, maybe in GMs it will be needed. There we go. Maybe in Grandmasters, Liar's Handshake will be better, but I honestly don't think so. The survivability that Assassin's Cowl gives is so huge because every time you get a melee kill, you're invisible, and then you can line up your next melee without taking damage. That is actually huge, especially in this Nightfall, because there's a bunch of Cursed Thrall. If you melee one of them, you're dead. So you can get a melee kill, dodge to get your melee back, and then line up what you want to hit next. It gives you room to breathe. Where Liar's Handshake, you just won't have that. And then in GMs, you're probably going to get one shot. Again, something like a Barrier Colossus. But if you can get the sneak on them with Assassin's Cowl, then I think that'd be better. So honestly, I think Assassin's Cowl is the play. In the 1600 Nightfall, at this light, you don't even need Liar's Handshake. Like I said, I was taking out enemies before they could even shield, like the Barrier Knights and stuff, just with 1-2 punch and combination blow. So it's really good. I'll stop talking and I will let you enjoy the Nightfall. I hope you enjoy the video. Take care.
Guardian, high forces are lashing out from the Cosmodrome, led by a disgraced wizard named Devota.
Disgraced?
She narrowly escaped a previous Vanguard operation with her life. Now the Brood questions her strength.
She'll be desperate to prove herself.
Indeed. That desperation makes her dangerous, but also reckless. Eliminate her before she regains her footing.
Lots of movement ahead. Be ready for anything. Fallen raiding party ahead. They don't seem thrilled about Navota's presence.
They won't appreciate yours either.
dense hive signatures in a facility up ahead. I don't like this. It feels like a trap.
Then spoil their plans.
We're close now. She won't escape this time.
Retreat isn't an option for her anymore. Not with the brood doubting her. Expect the worst, Guardian. Navota has no choice but to defeat you.
That energy signature. That's her. That's Navota. happy to send the message, Commander.
Excellent work. Return to the tower.